Welcome to Tea Time Smash. It's a pleasure to have you here. Grab a cup, have a seat, and join in. So I, 19 non-binary, now no longer live with my mom, but I'm still living with the effects of her parenting. She is one of the most entitled people I know, so this feels appropriate to be here. Ever since I can remember, my mother has breathed down my neck about what I ate and what I wore. My appearance was everything to her. She constantly nitpicked my hair, nails, teeth, neck, tummy, and so on. Nothing was safe. I slouched too much, I ate too fast, my neck was thick that day, etc. She always found a way to tear me down. While I was still in that environment, I figured she knew best and I would thank her later like she always said I would. But why would I thank her for shaming me for eating a second or, God forbid, third slice of pizza? When I was little, I thought nothing of it. I was about 6 when she first started to tell me I needed to suck in my stomach. This turned into being corrected/shamed any time I was caught not sucking in. As the years passed, I feared that everyone would notice what I ate and how much of a fatty I must have been. I sucked it in at school, at home, and even alone in my room. By the time I reached middle school, I already had a rocky relationship with food. My mom would make my plate so she could control my portion sizes, and I would always want more. This turned into me shoving all the food I could into my face when she wasn't around, which caused weight gain, which meant I was going to be shamed. My mom started making me weigh myself in front of her when I was 13. I was 103 pounds the first time I weighed myself. She was happy that I was so skinny, but it wasn't enough for her. She would constantly say that I needed to weigh myself daily as to not gain any weight that I couldn't notice. 103 turned into 109, 115, 120, 130, 118, then 120 again. I kept journals of what I ate at school and what my goal was, and looking back, that was so bad for my young mind. I skipped meals, forced myself to throw up, and binged in secret. The secret wasn't well kept, as she constantly went through my trash to look for wrappers. I would get texts while at school, ripping into me for eating snacks. Eventually one thing led to another, and she used my phone to try to get my weight under her control. She would say that if I gained weight she'd take it, which I heard constantly. Eventually I tried my damnedest to get out of that mindset and gained about 10 to 20 pounds at the end of my living with her. She noticed and brought me into her room so I could weigh myself in front of her. I told her no. She looked surprised and poorly tried to cover up her anger. I told her that I didn't want to and that the number will just mess with my head and make my mental health worse. She didn't back down and insisted, but I told her I knew she was going to shame me. She said she wouldn't, but once I stepped on that scale her face dropped. 145 made her face go sour, and she told me I needed to get back on track. She shamed me and I let her because she had power over me. Now I don't know my current weight because I know the number will do nothing but drive me crazy. I just know I'm the healthiest I've ever been, and I hope she realizes one day that her actions do in fact have consequences and she's not the angel she portrays. I'm sorry for such a long post, I just wanted to get that out there because I was unable to talk about it for so long. Parents need to know this behavior isn't okay. OP, after reading several experiences like this, I strongly believe a lot of mental health issues such as eating disorders can in fact originate early on in childhood, where a person's parents or guardians would shame and discourage their child for being overweight. They would force or impose strict guidelines in order to achieve their own goals through their kids. More often than not, this backfires, as the child would eat much more in their absence and might even eat more than they feel like eating just if they don't get a chance to have a snack or a filling meal later in the day. Besides eating disorders, this kind of shaming and humiliating by people we trust and respect, who as kids might be our parents, can leave long-term consequences. A kid who is told they are not good enough for anything, not worth anything, easily replaceable, or have no usable talents can not only cause the person to go in a self-destructive depression, but will also affect their social lives, employment and work opportunities, romantic relationships, self-esteem, and so many other things in their lives in more ways than we would ever know. When I, 19 non-binary, turned 15. I was gifted a stuffed bat by a boy 15 I was dating at the time. I wasn't allowed to actually date him, so we tried to keep it a secret. After a while I could tell my mom and stepfather didn't like him. Not for any good reason other than my mother felt he was too poor and smelly. He did smell bad, but it was literally his environment. He himself didn't smell, it was his clothes. She said he wasn't good enough for me, and after he broke down to a school counselor about how he was worried about how depressed I had gotten. So after that phone call I wasn't allowed to see or talk to him again. I also had my phone manually gone through and wiped by her. She kept it for a week or two, and when I got it back the only thing left untouched was my gallery. Everything else was deleted. The only things left on my phone were default apps, 3 phone numbers, mom, stepfather, grandma, and that was it. She deleted the music I paid for, all my games, and changed the login for all my social medias. At that moment in my life she had taken everything from me. My friends, my music, everything I used to cope. Over time I had to regain her trust, and I would get in trouble if I downloaded absolutely anything without permission, even a dumb game. I found ways around it to talk to my then boyfriend, like texting him through YouTube back when that was still a thing. I slept with the stuffed bat he had given me every night. I cried into it and held it tight. It was the only thing tangible I had from him. Well, one day my mom comes down to my room to do the laundry, basement bedroom, and sent me upstairs to watch the kids. This was weird. She never did this, so I knew something was up, but it didn't cross my mind until later that night. I was going to bed and couldn't find my bat. I panicked and searched for it for hours before giving up and crying myself to sleep. The next day my mom leaves and tells me to take out the trash from the garage. After she left I opened the trash bag, and who do I find in there? My bat. I named him Baylor. It's not important to the story, but it's important to me, so I set him aside and threw the trash out like normal, then ran to my room with him to clean him and hide him. Sadly, later that day, after my mom returned home, she searched the trash bins. Then demanded that I go get the bat. I didn't want to, but I knew I had to, so I did. Along with other things, 2 past friends she caused me to have a falling out with had given me. My mom sat me down on the back patio with my stepfather and younger siblings, who were 1, 4, and 7 at the time, to talk about it. They had started a fire in the fire pit and made me throw the things and the bat into the fire. I was sobbing the whole time as I watched Baylor's plastic eyes melt into the pile of melted stuffing and wood sticks. My 4-year-old brother ran up to me as this was happening, and when he saw what was in the fire pit he panicked. He was barely potty trained and yet knew how much that bat meant to me. He cried with me, and I wish he didn't have to. The entire time this was happening my mother was making snarky remarks about how much better I must feel and how she was helping me. Yeah, that extra trauma sure helped a lot, mother. OP, I'm sincerely so sorry to hear this story. Your mother seems to be an excessively controlling person and certainly lacks empathy. I can feel that the soft plushy toy bat that you named Baylor meant a lot to you. I have no information about the environment the boy was from, but if it was his environment that caused him to have unpleasant odor, and if it was a major reason why your mother was unhappy about your relationship, it couldn't have hurt if you had politely asked him to improve his personal hygiene, and I'm sure he would have made adjustments to keep his clothing tidy and personal self clean, for both the sake of the relationship and himself. Judging anyone by their financial status, especially at such a young age by a grown adult, is certainly wrong, and she most definitely was not making a sound call by doing that. I'm honestly shocked and sad to read that not only did you find your bat in the trash bin, but you even had to burn it yourself. The level of detail you put in that sentence wants to make me shed a tear myself. As you have grown up a lot now, OP, you may already be on your own. You also seem to have nice siblings, and that's always great. Focus on improving your life today and try to maintain positive relationship with your family. Try not to think much of the negatives that have happened in the past. I know it's easier said than done, but I hope you have moved on and life is many folds better now. This isn't happening to me or really affecting me much, and I can't recall all the details, but my girlfriend 17 at the time, let's call her Gina, is being treated with such disrespect from her mom, which well cool Kat. It really started getting out of hand when Kat started paying Gina for taking care of her own baby brother 4 years old, Henry, and her younger brother 15 I think, Fred. Not their real names. Gina was getting paid like $2 per person per hour? So $4 an hour I think. And she went on call with her dad, talking about how she is getting paid and such, and her dad mentioned, "You are getting underpaid. You should be at least getting paid $10 per hour, $5 each kid." Kat overhears it, and grabs Gina's phone to start yelling about how she is getting paid just fine, and how she is even lucky to even be paid. Then starts yelling at Gina saying, "Do you think you are being underpaid? Do you?" And yelling at her. To which Gina said something along the lines of, No, I am fine with this," and that's when I start forgetting the rest. But that's not the end of it. Kat stopped paying her, and saying "I'll do it later" or "I forgot" or just avoids it entirely. She uses Gina's money to buy a small toy for Henry, and so now she owes more money. Gina tries to talk about it with her like a business transaction, and her mom tells her something like, "I'm not paying you until you start taking this seriously." To which Gina is confused. Wasn't she doing a good job? She did it right, she thought. Turns out her mom lied. She stopped paying her because of the phone call with her dad. Basically, because she is petty. And was mad at her ex-husband. Oh yeah, they are divorced. Gina tries to tell Kat she owes her money again, which was around $120 something, which included her $40 bill agreement and some other stuff. To which Kat starts screaming at her, and Gina finally snaps, "Just laying this out, you owe me money." Oh, that pissed off Kat. She started a screaming match and went downstairs while still screaming at Gina. Gina stops it there and goes to her room. But it was far from over, unfortunately. Phase 2 begins here. After some time, Gina wakes up to being called downstairs. When downstairs, her mom and her boyfriend, we'll call Jerry, were both wearing grey shirts with the words "drill instructor" on it. And her mom handed both Fred and Gina papers with house rules on them. Gina thought it was a joke, since they were borderline absolutely crazy, and her mom said something like, "We always had these rules, we are just enforcing them now." I think I can't absolutely recall for sure, and Gina just says, "No, I'm not doing this," and tries to leave, to which Jerry grabs her arm, and Gina yells to let her go, which he does eventually. Then her mom runs after her and pins her on the stairs, and says a few words that gets my blood boiling. "Hit me, I call the police." And so Gina doesn't fight back. Gina is forced to hand over her phone, and is locked in her room. Gina starts packing stuff, and sneaks out the back door. She was going to hide at her school to get away from her mom, but her mom found her. Kat tells her to get in the car, she is taking her to her dad's, and Gina tells her no. After some back and forth, she gets in the car. And the first thing Kat says is, "You could have costed me my job, you selfish child. Not a single, are you okay? We were worried, or even a gurl, you could have gotten hurt." Just about how Gina could have made her lose her job in the military. I can't remember the rest of the story except until they get there. Jerry talks to Gina and makes a deal with her. She'll only have to do the boot camp. Oh yeah, her mom calls it a boot camp, until they take a trip to visit his parents. Which at the time was a few months. Gina agreed. Now we are on to phase 3. Gina can't have a phone, and so she made a plan to get a job at 18, and so she can get money to get a phone, and pay for her own bills, and internet. Therefore her mother wouldn't be able to take it away since it's her property. We are communicating through Discord on her school computer at this point. And I can't recall much aside from her mom acting entitled and giving her penalties for things that are absolutely absurd. Like, "Because you took your computer upstairs this morning." Or "Because you didn't leave your computer downstairs for the night." And other things as absurd for that. They aren't labeled in the boot camp rules BTW, she made those up just because she was mad. But surprise surprise, Gina turns 18 and gets basically no birthday. Yeah, dumb, but just a small part of this thing. And now she is working towards getting a job, she has good grades, and she is being obedient. And now to recent BS. It's time for the flight to visit Jerry's parents, and Gina packs clothes she feels like she will need. And her mom comes in and unpacks everything, saying you don't need this much. Which Gina was overpacking like a normal amount. You know, the amount you normally do when taking a plane across the state. But no, too much apparently. So this already ticked me off. But I gave the benefit of the doubt and said maybe there was really too much, I don't know. But now the part that made me type all this mess. Gina has a personal bag of hers for this flight to visit Jerry's parents, full of pencils, paper probably, etc., and she caught her mom going through it behind her back. Because she wanted to check it. Even though she could have asked first. No, she should have asked first. Apparently she took some stuff out and is not giving it back to Gina, including her work permit, and some charges that I think Gina managed to get by stealing it back. It was hers to begin with. But the thing that made me break was the fact she took her work permit. It's clear she doesn't want Gina to get a job because of this one statement she made a while ago: you will disclose if you want a job with me, so you can get my permission. Only if you get good grades though. To which Gina is, but she takes her work permit? And won't give it back to her? Jerry argued this with her, but she still didn't give it back. I feel like this is borderline illegal. I tried looking it up and I couldn't find anything on it. But either way, I just wanted to share this because I feel so mad about her. I want to help but I don't know what to do. OP, this is an absolutely heartbreaking story. This seems like a psychological domestic violence case. Her mum, Kat, seems to be an abuser, using her authority at home to feel better about herself. My guess is she is denying payments to Gina so that she is unable to become self-reliant and independent. These kind of abusers need their victims to be dependent upon them to continue their abuse and control, because they know as soon as they become independent they would leave and end this cycle of vicious abuse. This has got to be the reason why Kat has stolen her work permit and requires Gina to ask for permission before she could look for employment. My guess is that no matter how good Gina's grades would be and how good of a job she may be able to acquire, Kat will still deny permission for it just to stagnate Gina's opportunity to be self-sufficient. I believe Gina should definitely contact the police in this case and attempt to get her work permit back through that. In case she is not willing to involve the police in domestic matters, she should contact the government department responsible for issuing the work permit and ask for a replacement work permit, if possible. I, however, would still recommend involving the police, but Kat does not deserve a peaceful ending. To start, a little of background. I had a troubled teenagehood, relationship speaking, especially with some adults, teachers mainly, and generally it was also my fault, non entirely, but sure, I had still a part of blame in that situation, and in generally I was not the best kid. I was kinda a troublemaker. Things got better with the years. Coming to the story, that happened last month, a few days ago when I originally created this post. Last month I started university abroad and I needed to change my phone operator so I could still make calls and access internet. Even there, I could get there on my own, since I have both driving license and a credit card, but the operator contract was under my mother's name and signing it with under my name was a pain in the ass, bureaucratically speaking. That afternoon we got into the store, me, my mother and my grandpa, who needed to switch operator as well. Everything went well for the first moment. The shop assistant was explaining to me and my grandpa how everything worked and stuff. Then we came to associating my mom's credit card to the new contract. It was not that much, but enough to ask for the PIN and a auth code sent to my mom's phone. For some company policies, the shop assistant couldn't help with the process. I was fine with it. I inserted all the details and everything. Then came the moment where I had to insert card PIN and auth code, and things from there went downhill fast. The conversation read as follows. Me, Mom, what's the code? Mom calls my dad to ask for it since she doesn't know it, then writes the code on a piece of paper and gives it to me. Me inserts the code as written on the paper. Now the auth code, you should have received it in a SMS. Mom reads the code digit per digit while I insert it. Me, it says wrong code, are you sure they're correct? Mom snaps my phone out my hand and proceeds to insert the code herself while complaining about me. Website, wrong code. Try again later x 6 times, with same codes BTW her bank by an SMS, dear my mother's name, we've seen suspicious activity on your card, so for security reasons we blocked it, instructions on how to unlock it. She asked the shop assistant if she could make the association later with my dad, he replied yes, out of the store. My mom kept on blathering and complaining about me. In the car I finally replied with it's not my fault if you can't use a credit card, especially if you keep entering the same codes, that the website told you are the wrong ones, to which she replied by threatening of beating me, and throwing at me a bag of chips. I don't know what she thought their lamau, she had bought for me. I replied good job. Throw chips at me cuz you can't win an argument. And I should the immature one here, huh? She exploded right after that, and got out of the car to come in the back seat to beat me up, or at least try it. I am strongly against hurting parents or people in general, but that was self-defense. I managed to push her back using my foot. She tried to pull my hair but failed. After a couple of minutes into this fight, all in front of my grandpa, which had been there from the start and was seeing his daughter's true colors, if he already hadn't, my mother stopped, turned on the car and things ended there. I expected to then have to deal with my father, later at home, but he only tried to blame me and her for not being able to use a credit card. After I explained that she snapped my phone from my hands and did all by herself, she stopped blaming me. Things really ended there. P.S. That's not the first time something like this had happened. For instance, just before I started writing this, a day before I posted it, she was arguing, getting to trying to hit me with a broom, to then smash it on my room's floor, almost breaking it. Lol. I was genuinely hoping for that to happen, with me about me saying we're not in summer anymore mom, you know. After she suggesting me to go out for a walk, I know that someone will say she told you to go touch some grass lamau, but that was not her original intent. Everything because she couldn't win the argument since I was still replying, and as I said that's not the first time, she seemingly likes to throw this kind of tantrum. OP, in this instance, I am making assumptions that your mother is much older and not familiar with technology as she needs to write down a 4 or 6-digit PIN number of her own credit card. It could also be possible that she may have eyesight issues relating to said age. If you could push her away using your foot, then I don't see why you couldn't have firmly asked to insert the authentication code once yourself and instead of letting her do it 6 times by herself. I also don't see telling someone they are gonna hit them by throwing a bag of chips as much of a threat. Sure, coming over to the backseat to hit you, as you claim, is certainly an issue you need to work out with her. Imagine what the grandpa must have been feeling, watching his daughter get kicked and pushed by feet by her own kid.
In this case OP, I think you must sit down with her and discuss some boundaries, and it seems to me like this relationship could use a little distance. Good thing is that you have recently started university abroad that will make this happen.
I believe after this distance, one another may realize and possibly even miss each other, though it may not seem as such today, but it will likely happen sooner than later. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe. If you disliked it, well, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next video.